The people to whom we're sent, to whom I was sent, held the keys not only for my survival, but for my well-being, and I'd even say for my redemption. Native Peoples Parish is where I serve, is where I work, is where I minister out of. It's, I guess it's a place, but it's more of a people. Our place, we really don't have a place of our own. We are privileged guests at St. Vincent de Paul Church in front of West End. And our community is small, but a fantastic group of people. And people come from all over the city. And there's conservative estimates of 47 to 50,000 Native people living in Metro Toronto. There are many Native people living here. Most of our people are Ojibwe. There's also Cree, a lot of breeds like me. There are Micmac, Maliseets, people from the west coast, the Gitxwan, Wet'suwet'en peoples. There's Plains Cree, Mohawk, Cayuga, other Six Nations people, the Iroquoian people. And there's just a lot of people from many cultures and languages, and we just gather together. Angel choir above are raising, holy, holy, holy Lord. I think a gift that the Native people have, my people have, is our ability to laugh, even during hard times, and its ability to speak from our hearts. You know, when somebody says, "I've been thinking," I tend to listen, because this person has something to say, something that comes after days, weeks, perhaps years of struggle, trying to understand. People are looking for some solid ground, something that is sacred, that can speak to their spirit. And I believe that the thing that can speak most powerfully is when we speak and we're aware of that inner voice, that spirit. So we speak from our heart. When I speak from this place here, I can't go too far wrong. It touches people, wakens people, it stirs people. And there's an honesty and a real respect when it comes to people sharing from the heart. I believe that the Native Church in Canada is something that is still very much in a formation stage. And until we have our own people able to be themselves within the church, I think that we still won't be a church. The Native Church is both a reality and yet something that's just starting. What does a Native Church have to offer? How is it different than church in Canada? It's a very large question. We hear a lot of talk about environmentalists. Well, the Native people were the first environmentalists. And we have to offer a closeness to this land as the first people and first teachers of the land. It's really in now to be environmentally sound. Everybody's into their blue box and curbside programs. But that's the extent to which people are environmental and considering the earth, and considering the other life forms that we share this planet and the city with. That's sad. I think as Native people we bring a sense of that sanctity of life that I believe the church can benefit from. And I think as Native people, we hold a gift for the church, a gift of an experience of God that is profoundly simple and beautiful. The beauty of it comes, I think, is looking at the richness of that voice, that spirit that dwells within. The effort among different Native peoples here in Canada, among Indian and Métis people, to promote religious vocations has had some very limited success, I think, in terms of strategies and pastoral plans throughout the years, decades. It seems, in my mind, that there have been many more Native women who've responded to a call to serve in the church than there has been of Native men. Why is that so? I really can't say. There's talk that the role of family, and especially the role of celibacy, has a lot to play with that. I'm just wondering, perhaps it's because women are stronger than men in many ways, in most ways. In terms of Native religious, there is a growing amount of Native people within the church today who are taking some leadership within their own communities. And they're trying to walk hand in hand with their brothers, with their sisters, their aunties, their uncles, just their people. I think the great failure that's still with us today, and something we struggle with, is where the church is not Native. And where Native ways are still finding their way in the church. We're told to go back home. To go back home. And home being that's the elders. The elders who remember the way things were. The elders who remember traditions. The elders who remember stories. The elders who have been the keepers of a faith, the keepers of a culture. And if anything, we're recovering a greater sense of that story. We're moving slowly, but we're asked to move surely. And with the help of our elders, listening to that spirit, and fundamentally not letting go of that spirit. I've only been learning traditional ways for the last 10 years. But in a sense, I've been learning all my life by what I've seen and what my mother, my grandmother, my aunties, and what my sisters have taught me. The role of women in society, and especially in Native, Indian country. I mean, it's very important. If you walk into an Indian community, I know there's going to be so many people who will disagree with me or even get angry at me for saying this, but I'm going to say it. If you want to get things moving, it's not the men in the council, for most part, who can organize things and get things moving quickly. Oh, we'll sit down and we'll talk about it. But it's the women who can organize and get people out and make things happen. The role of women in the raising of children, in the knowledge of their own children. And part of that is, a lot of it is just survival, I think. It's interesting in the life of the church, and there's many different people who can speak to this much more eloquently than I can. But mention Kateri and Our Lady, my lady, who's been important in my life as guides, spirit people, saints. And it's interesting that they're women. And I think in Western culture, European cultures, there's been a tradition or this tendency to take a look and to somehow make the Virgin Mary less of a woman because of some traditions, or to make Kateri or any sort of holy or saintly person to be less human, sort of cutting off certain parts of life. But I believe that these women that I've mentioned, Kateri and Mary, have been two women who have lived full lives, whole lives. And in one sense, warrior women, women with a spirit that wants to protect their child and their children, and wants to protect their church. And there's a lot of strength in that. In our ways, in terms of the church, women are involved in sort of liturgical ways, but women form a very important role in our community, period, because the majority of people who come are women, and women are the faith keepers. My family is a mixed family. My mom's side is Native. My mother is Métis. She says Métis. Sometimes I like to say Métis, I'm all mixed up. And my father was born in this land, but he came from immigrant parents. When I think of my family, you know, there's many happy memories. My older brother is a lot darker than I am. In fact, he looks very native. Well, I don't. And that's always been an issue for me, my color. Or my older brother, it's always been an issue for him, his color. Or if I've always wanted to be darker, he's always wanted to be lighter. I think we were born in each other's skins or something, I don't know. Or some people ask me, oh, when did you want to be a priest? You always wanted to be a priest ever since you've been little. And I said, no. The very first time I was aware that even I thought that way, I was 17. A friend, she was the daughter of the doctor in town, an East Indian girl named Nilima Jajik. We were outside eating lunch under a tree one day in May. The weather turned good. And she asked me, well, what do you want to do after you leave school? What do you want to do with your life? And my mouth opened, and it was like somebody speaking out of my mouth. It was my voice, but it wasn't me. And I don't know where it came from. I don't know. I was thinking I might be a priest or something. And she looked at me with these big eyes, these big dark eyes, and I looked at her, and we both started laughing, and I was frightened. And then I promptly didn't think about that for many years. And of course, I wanted to do many things. I wanted to be successful. I wanted to basically make lots of money and not have to be fairly independent and lead a good life. But I remember going to my parents when I was almost 21. I remember telling my parents, my brothers, my sisters, and they just looked at me and said, "You?" Mom was very quiet. That was so unusual for her. And when she was so quiet, I got a bit scared. And when she finally spoke, her voice was very low and very calm. And she said, "You know, I just learned something today." Something like this, she said. "I learned something today. You know, I've been praying all my life for vocations to religious life, brothers, sisters, priests. I learned today that I've been praying for other people's children, not mine." She said, "It's a lonely life, it's a hard life, one of the hardest lives you can choose." And she said, "You're going to go away, and when you come back, we won't know you. You'll be a stranger." But what attracted me to the Oblates, I think, primarily was the sense and the real respect I think they had for themselves and others. At least in the people I knew. And Father LeBleu said to me once, I talked to him about this many times, he said, "You know, 90% is God's work in you. 10% is your own effort." Never forgotten that. I try to remember that. The Oblates were men that I could relate to almost like family. I think in many ways the Oblates became my second family. Since I joined in 1979, the community has undergone a lot of changes, at least in Canada. And the changes we've had, oh my, you know, the Oblates have changed, society's changed, I've changed. Church has changed. There's been a real decline in the number of men to do the jobs available. There's been an increase in the amount of requests for just people to do the work. I think I've been given a great amount of freedom, but also too, a lot has been asked of me. What I'm trying to do is trying to listen to that inner voice. And as the Oblates, I believe the Oblates are trying to listen to people as well. It's so difficult at times. So we gathered and we started to talk about what our experience was of Native people in traditional ways. And we came up with a statement of mission from St. Peter's province, stating that we believe in Native people's experience of God and in their spirituality. State that we believe in the emergence of a church, a culture of the church, interacting with cultures, gospel, will emerge only when power is shared among the people, with the people. And we committed ourselves to journey as missionaries, to stand by people, to walk with people, to be for the Native people in their realities, to work for the emerging leadership among Native peoples in the society, but also in the church. The missionary Oblates made an apology to Native peoples, First Nation people, and it said some things that I thought were profoundly prophetic for a male community of mostly clerics and brothers to admit our need and our role in the destruction and the violence that have been part of the Church's history with Native people, so that we too can be free, so that we too can journey into a future. And if it can happen once, it can happen again. You know, that humility that comes when saying, not only did we make a mistake, but there was something evil, destructive in our efforts, not intended, but that was part and parcel of the system. There are many oblates who don't accept the apology. Many oblates who feel hurt, who feel that their lives' efforts are wasted, that in saying they apologize for the existence of the schools, that somehow that obliterated their many years, maybe the best years of their life, and giving all they had to give. All I can say to those men is that whenever you've given your heart away, it's never given in vain. Maybe not building a structure, an institution, but when you're able to give your heart away, I think then you can really work with educating, not only yourself but in others. It's interesting, when I joined the Oblates, I thought I'd be looking ahead. You know, what would I need? Looking ahead and seeing it life. My first year as an Oblate, I ended up looking backwards. It was such a healing year for me. It was such a gift, an experience of reconciling something I could not do myself, or something that this other person couldn't do, but to me it was the power of the Creator, the power of Christ in my life. There are many ministries as Oblates, and in order for me to look forward, I had to be free. And I realized that I had a lot of work to do. And yet I also had a lot of gifts to give as well, and looking at where I wanted to give those gifts. Since 1985, and even before then, I was involved in ministry with Native people. Not my own people, but other Native people. And from that, I've been encountering my own, I'd say my own spirit. One time being Native was all up here for me. And then something started to happen. I started having these dreams. I started doing a lot of work in dreams. God, I started dreaming about all these animals that come and visit me in my dreams. It's bears and eagles and beavers, fish. I even had the trickster come visit me a few times in these masks and all these things. I never dreamt about that before. I think it was another part of that spirit, those inner voices that had been shut down. And it seemed to be when I was with other people that came out. There's an experience when I was up in Labrador on fire. I lost everything. And it was through that experience that I really began to see that as missionaries we rely upon the people, and it is for the people that we exist. The people to whom we're sent, to whom I was sent, held the keys not only for my survival, but for my well-being, and I'd even say for my redemption.